We live in a world that often teaches us to tidy up our emotions, to put a smile on our faces even when our hearts are breaking, to say "I'm fine" when our souls are tired, and to bury pain under layers of distraction and achievement. But emotional honesty is not weakness. It's the foundation of true strength. To honor your feelings means to give yourself permission to feel everything, not just the polished emotions that are socially acceptable. When you deny your sadness, you also dull your capacity for joy. When you suppress your anger, you silence your own truth. The human heart wasn't designed to be edited. It was designed to be expressed, understood, and healed through awareness. Start by creating moments of quiet where you can sit with what's real. Without judging it, ask yourself, what am I truly feeling right now? Don't rush to fix it. Don't shame yourself for it. Just name it, because naming your feelings gives them less power over you. When you learn to say, "I'm hurt," "I'm scared," or "I'm disappointed," you take the first step toward emotional freedom. Loving yourself means treating your inner world with the same care you would offer to a dear friend. If your friend came to you in pain, you wouldn't tell them to get over it. You'd listen, hold space, and remind them they're not alone. Offer that same compassion to yourself. Emotional authenticity isn't about indulging in negativity. It's about giving your emotions the respect they deserve. Every feeling has a message. Sadness asks for rest. Anger asks for change. Fear asks for safety. And joy asks to be shared. When you honor your feelings, you reconnect with your humanity. And that's where your unstoppable self-love begins. One of the most powerful acts of self-care is learning how to set boundaries without feeling guilty for doing it. Many of us were raised to believe that saying no makes us selfish, that we must constantly be available, agreeable, and accommodating to be loved or accepted. But here's the truth. Boundaries are not barriers. They are bridges to self-respect. When you live without boundaries, you live without peace. You allow people to drain your energy, cross your emotional limits, and occupy space that should belong to your growth. You start carrying responsibilities that aren't yours and begin mistaking exhaustion for loyalty. But love, whether for others or yourself, cannot survive in a place where resentment grows. And resentment always grows where boundaries are missing. Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. It's about keeping the right people close. It's about clearly communicating what honors your well-being and what violates. It means you no longer explain, justify, or over-defend your no. You simply say it with love and calm certainty, because your boundaries are a reflection of how deeply you value yourself. Here's what boundaries sound like. I can't take that call right now. I'm not available for that conversation. I love you, but that doesn't work for me. Simple, clear, and rooted in respect, both for you and the other person. When you start setting boundaries, expect some people to get uncomfortable, especially those who benefited from your lack of them. But don't let that discomfort make you question your worth. Your job is not to keep everyone comfortable. Your job is to keep your heart healthy and your soul peaceful. You don't need to apologize for protecting your peace. You don't need to shrink so others can stretch. You don't need to explain why you're choosing rest over chaos or solitude over noise. Boundaries are how you teach people to treat you, and more importantly, how you teach yourself to love you. Because at the end of the day, your self-love becomes unstoppable when you stop negotiating your peace for acceptance. You are allowed to guard your space, honor your time, and protect your energy unapologetically. In the pursuit of self-love, many of us overlook one of the most healing habits of all, the art of celebrating small wins. We've been conditioned to believe that only big accomplishments deserve applause, the promotions, the milestones, the life-changing breakthroughs. But real growth, the kind that transforms your heart and mind, happens quietly. In the small victories no one else sees every time you get out of bed when anxiety tells you to stay down. that's a win. Every time you choose kindness over bitterness, that's a win. Every time you speak up when your voice trembles or walk away from something that doesn't honor you, that's a massive win. You see, the road to becoming unstoppable isn't paved with grand moments of glory. It's built with daily steps of courage. Small wins are evidence that you're showing up for yourself even when no one's watching. They remind you that progress doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. When you dismiss your small wins, you rob yourself of joy. You teach your mind that nothing you do is ever enough, and that breeds burnout and shame. But when you celebrate them, when you pause, smile, and say, I'm proud of me for doing that, you rewire your brain to associate effort with worthiness, not just success. Celebrating small wins builds momentum. It turns ordinary days into meaningful ones and helps you see how far you've actually come. You start realizing that you're not the same person you were last month, last year, or even yesterday. You've grown, evolved, and learned, and that deserves recognition. So clap for yourself more often. Write down your wins, no matter how small they seem. Treat them as proof that you're moving forward. Because you are, don't wait for the world to validate your progress. You are allowed to celebrate your own becoming loudly and joyfully. Self-love becomes unstoppable when you learn to be proud of the process, not just the outcome, because in truth, every small step forward is a quiet act of self-respect, and that's something worth celebrating every single day. The words you speak to yourself shape the life you live. Most of us have learned to offer compassion to others, but criticism to ourselves. We comfort friends when they fail, yet we shame ourselves for the same mistakes. We tell others to be gentle with their hearts, yet we speak to our own hearts like enemies. But the truth is, you cannot love yourself deeply if your inner voice is constantly tearing you down. Self-talk is not just background noise. It's the soundtrack of your soul. It affects how you show up, how you recover from pain, and how you dream about the future. When your inner dialogue is cruel, you live in defense. But when it becomes kind, you start living in peace. To speak to yourself like someone you love means to replace self-criticism with understanding. It means that when you make a mistake, you don't say, I'm such a failure. You say, I'm human, I'm learning. When you fall short, you don't say, I'll never get it right. You say, I'm getting better each day. Because growth happens when love leads the conversation. Think about it. If a child came to you in tears, would you scold them for crying? Or would you hold them and remind them that it's okay to feel? You deserve that same level of compassion. You deserve to be your own comfort, not your own critic. Changing how you talk to yourself isn't easy. It takes awareness, patience, and daily practice. But every time you catch a negative thought and choose a kind one instead, you're rewiring your emotional foundation. You're teaching your mind that it's safe to believe in you again. Start by noticing your inner dialogue. When you catch yourself saying something cruel, pause, ask, would I say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, change it. Speak words that heal, not words that hurt. Speak like your heart is listening. Because it is, loving yourself becomes unstoppable when you treat your inner voice as your greatest ally. Because when your self-talk turns gentle, your confidence begins to rise, your peace deepens, and your entire life begins to reflect the love you finally give yourself. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that rest is something we have to earn, that we must first exhaust ourselves, cross off every item on the list, please everyone around us. Then we're allowed to stop, but that belief has quietly turned rest into guilt and fatigue into a lifestyle. Rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's not a reward for doing enough, it's a right, because you are enough. When you treat rest as sacred, you begin to heal from the culture of constant doing. You realize that your worth was never tied to your output. Your value doesn't decrease when you pause. In fact, it grows because clarity, creativity, and compassion are born in stillness, not in chaos. Think of rest as restoration, not laziness. When your body slows down, your mind begins to realign. When you allow yourself to breathe, your soul finally catches up to your life. The world glorifies hustle, but what it truly needs and what you truly need is rhythm. Seasons of work, seasons of rest. Because even nature knows that everything beautiful blooms from the balance between movement and stillness. Resting is a radical act of self-love in a world that rewards burnout. It's saying, I refuse to run myself into the ground to prove my worth. It's learning to close your laptop when your spirit says enough. It's giving yourself permission to take a nap, go for a quiet walk, or do nothing at all and still feel whole. When you honor rest, you're not quitting, you're recharging. You're choosing to protect the vessel that carries your dreams, your emotions, and your purpose. Because exhaustion doesn't prove dedication. It just hides depletion behind productivity. You were not born to chase validation through busyness. You were born to create, connect, love, and experience life. And none of that requires permission slips from success. When you finally detach your identity from your achievements, you free yourself from the endless race of not enough. Loving yourself unstoppable means honoring the truth that your presence has value, even when your hands are still. You are allowed to rest and still be worthy. You are allowed to slow down and still be deserving. The measure of your worth will never be found in what you produce, but in how courageously and authentically you live. One of the most powerful forms of self-care is choosing who gets access to your energy. The people you surround yourself with shape your mindset, your emotions, and your sense of self-worth more than you realize. That's why it's not enough to simply be around people. You must be around the right people, the ones who make you feel seen, safe, and supported, the ones who bring peace, not pressure. There's a difference between people who challenge you to grow and those who drain your soul. The first will encourage you to rise higher. The second will make you question your value. Pay attention to how you feel after being around someone. Do you feel lighter or heavier? Do you feel inspired or depleted? Your body always knows. Peace doesn't shout. It quietly reassures you that you're safe to be yourself. When you start to love yourself deeply, your standards for connection naturally rise. You stop entertaining relationships that thrive on drama, gossip, or competition. You stop explaining your boundaries to people committed to misunderstanding them. You stop begging for the bare minimum because you finally understand your worth. Surrounding yourself with peaceful people doesn't mean avoiding accountability or challenge. It means finding those who challenge you without wounding you. It means having relationships built on respect, trust, and mutual care. These are the people who can sit with your silence without needing to fix it, who celebrate your growth without feeling threatened by it, who remind you that rest and love can coexist. Self-love becomes unstoppable when you stop chasing belonging in places that bruise your spirit. Peaceful relationships are not accidental. They're intentional. You attract them when you embody peace yourself. So choose your circle wisely. Protect your atmosphere. Be with people who feel like warmth, not warfare, because love in its purest form will always feel like peace, not pain. One of the hardest yet most liberating acts of self-care is forgiving yourself for the things you didn't know before you knew better. We all carry moments we wish we could rewrite, choices made from fear, love we gave to the wrong people, boundaries we didn't set, words we wish we hadn't spoken. But holding on to regret is like dragging yesterday into today. It keeps you bound to a version of yourself that was only doing the best they could with what they knew at the time. You have to stop punishing yourself for being human. Growth means you're supposed to look back and say, I could have handled that differently. That's not shame. That's evidence of evolution. The very fact that you can now see what you couldn't before means you've grown. So why keep condemning yourself for a person you've already outgrown? Forgiving yourself doesn't mean erasing the past. It means releasing its power to define your future. It means replacing self-blame with compassion. It means saying, I didn't know then what I know now, and that's okay. Every mistake carried a lesson. Every heartbreak refined your understanding. Every wrong turn redirected you closer to who you were meant to be. When you withhold forgiveness from yourself, you stay stuck in the identity of your mistakes. But when you extend grace inward, you free yourself to live again, not from shame, but from wisdom. Because self-forgiveness is the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. Here's the truth. Healing doesn't come from perfection. It comes from permission. Permission to let go, to breathe, to move forward without carrying the weight of old stories. The past is not a prison. It's a classroom. Once you've learned the lesson, you don't have to keep reliving the pain. Loving yourself unstoppable means embracing your flaws and forgiving your blind spots. It's understanding that every version of you, even the messy, uncertain, and A-fave A1, played a part in your becoming. You don't need to erase that version, you need to honor them for surviving. So tonight, before you sleep, whisper to yourself, I forgive you for not knowing sooner. I forgive you for trying your best with limited light. I forgive you for being human. Because that's what love sounds like when it's finally directed inward. There is a quiet kind of strength in admitting that you can't do it all alone. Yet so many of us have been taught to wear independence like armor, to prove our worth through self-sufficiency, to hold it together even when everything inside us is falling apart. But asking for help is not weakness. It's courage. It's the moment you decide that healing, growth, and wholeness are more important than pride. We often fear asking for help because we confuse vulnerability with burden. We tell ourselves, I don't want to bother anyone, or I should be able to handle this. But the truth is, no one is meant to do life alone. Every soul needs a hand to hold, a voice to listen, and a presence to remind them that they're not alone in their struggles. Asking for help means you're brave enough to admit you have limits. It means you value your well-being more than your image. It's an act of humility, but also of self-love. Because when you reach out, you're